Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And now that it appears Xbox will finalize the Activision Blizzard acquisition sometime in the month of October, it appears they are absolutely salivating over the idea of bringing in their IP under the Xbox umbrella. Not only does it appear that they're prepping ahead of time, or at least according to some early findings, but they're also talking about an interesting game revival that fans have been requesting for years and years. So we're going to talk all about that today, as well as a potential major Sony hack that brings back a lot of memories of the old hack back in 2011. I was a part of that whole ordeal, and it was absolutely terrible back then, but allegedly, Sony might be the center of attention in the hacking realms once again. Though, is this actually authentic or not? That's something that is much discussed right now, but as always, we do have a lot to get into today, so without a further ado, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I'd say that Respawn Entertainment has done a good job with the Star Wars Jedi series to the point that these games are legitimately among the very best Star Wars games of all time. Now, I'll leave it up to you as to where you would rank each individual Star Wars game. Everybody has their own favorite, but overall, Respawn Entertainment has done a good job at creating a single-player, story-driven Star Wars series, and it sounds like that they're far from finished. The actor who plays Cal might have let us slip that a third entry is already in active development. At the Ocala Comic-Con in Florida, he went on to say this: "We're working on the third game and we're in the process of doing it right now. So that is a big undertaking and there's been some conversations so far. But hopefully, when all things are said and done, we'll be able to go in and make something really cool for you guys again." So, yeah, this is kind of a weird situation. I'm sure he probably was not supposed to say this publicly, though if this is actually true, and keep in mind, it's still not confirmed, and maybe he has something mixed up here, but truthfully, this is not the first time an actor has announced something that they weren't supposed to. Just a year or so back, if you remember right, Norman Reedus leaked Death Stranding 2 well ahead of time. So this is a plausible situation, and I mean, the first two games, they've had a lot of success. So why not go ahead and do a full trilogy? I imagine Disney probably wants to. I imagine EA probably wants to. And I'm sure a lot of fans would as well. I think a lot of fans would be very happy with a third game. Now, another highly anticipated game launched last week, and this right now has been one of the most disastrous launches in recent memory, being, of course, Payday 3. Now, if you've been trying to play Payday 3, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I mean, Payday 2 was extremely successful, and fans have been excited to jump into the third game. But that right there is the first problem. Fans have been unable to actually jump in because Payday 3's matchmaking has been nothing short of broke. Players have been reporting long wait times, or they're just flat out unable to matchmake, period. To make matters worse, because this isn't always online game this time around, even if you have a full party ready and you're already grouped up, you're still unable to get put in a match. That's one of those weird always online decisions that kind of blew up in their face because of all of its launch problems. Here's the thing though. Starbreeze put out an official press release this morning explaining what happened, why they didn't catch this issue in its beta, and also what their next steps are. They noted that it reached a 218,000 peak high concurrent players across all platforms over the weekend, and it's already reached a peak 1.35 million unique players, which, you know, that is impressive, and it goes to show you the excitement for this game. But of course, they didn't get these numbers in the beta, and with this rapid influx of players, it kind of helps explain why they didn't catch this issue before. The high volume, though, triggered a quote-unquote unrecoverable situation for the third-party matchmaking partner. Now, they've deployed a few hotfixes, and it seemingly has helped some, but by no way is it completely fixed. And this is Starbreeze's plan going forward. They said Starbreeze is currently evaluating all options, both short and long term. In the short term, this means that Starbreeze's focus is to ensure the player experience. In the long term, this means evaluating a new partner for matchmaking services and making Payday 3 less dependent on online services. I mean, if you ask fans, they'd probably say right away this should have never been this dependent on online services in the first place, but That's the gaming world that we kind of live in now. A lot of these companies, they push for that always online play, even when it's not necessarily needed, and that's kind of what happened here. Payday 3, though, was kind of paying the repercussions for that decision, though, and that's really just too bad for fans. Again, this is a highly anticipated game, as shown by the player count so far, but hopefully this lesson will result in a better product down the road, and maybe it can even be an example for other developers as well. This, however, being a live service game, I do imagine that it will evolve quite a bit in the long term, including with its much-needed matchmaking improvements. Okay, so let's just go and talk about Xbox and Activision, though. You know, last week, finally, the CMA provisionally approved the acquisition, and while that's still not a 100% guarantee, unless something completely unexpected happens, the buyout will likely complete sometime next month in October. Right now, the guesstimate is the week of October 10th, but Microsoft seems to already be salivating over the idea of getting all of those Activision Blizzard IP under the Xbox umbrella, and I mean, there's a lot here. We'll get into that here in just a second, but not all that long ago, Phil Spencer was quoted as saying that bringing all of those Activision games over to Xbox Game Pass will take some time. It's not just a simple press of the button. They have to do some work on the back end and all that type of stuff as well. So Game Pass subscribers shouldn't go into this expecting every Activision Blizzard game to be available in Game Pass the day the acquisition gets approved. That's not how these type of things works, and okay, that's fair enough. No problem whatsoever. But here's the thing. Over the weekend, some players, specifically over in Brazil, started to notice that while trying to purchase Call of Duty Black Ops 2, they were greeted with a message that was translated as saying, "You receive this item free with your Game Pass subscription. Continue to finish and be able to use it forever." So this news started to make waves online, and a few others reportedly spotted something similar. And this kind of begs the question, is Microsoft and Activision prepping things ahead of time? This deal by this point, it looks to be about as good as done. And I mean, if you look back at things, there's been questions for a while. Back during the original Microsoft Activision acquisition deadline on July 18th, if you remember right, there were several Activision occurrences that coincided with that date. It was right around the same time that all of these Call of Duty games was just suddenly, magically fixed for Xbox. All of a sudden, all of these old Call of Duty games had working multiplayer game. People were flocking back to all of these old Call of Duty games. And it was also right around that same time frame that Blizzard announced that they're bringing their games over to Steam, a platform that Xbox heavily supports. Now, we can just call these coincidences. That could be all this is. I'm not really sure how the legal front works on all this type of stuff, but it's easy to see why fans might believe the two are prepping things ahead of time for their eventual merger, with this type of stuff coinciding with those deadlines. If anything else, though, I would still recommend taking this as a rumor until Microsoft confirms something themselves. Yes, this might have appeared over in Brazil, but I would take this nothing more than a rumor for the time being. In fact, I would remain skeptical. I mean, I get why fans kind of have their suspicions with, some of the things that are happening, but I would remain skeptical and go in with no expectations. What I believe will happen here is that once the acquisition is complete, Microsoft will sit down with Activision Blizzard and put out another one of those videos similar to what they did with Bethesda, where they just all sit down and talk and basically set expectations for fans on what to expect going forward with this acquisition. And hopefully there we'll get all of our questions answered. This, however, is not the only big Xbox Activision Blizzard story today, though, because revivals have been a hot topic throughout this entire buyout. One of the believed pros of this buyout is Xbox reviving dormant franchises and just kind of branching out a little bit more. Xbox Game Pass heavily benefits from a diverse portfolio, so it would make sense for Xbox to utilize more Activision Blizzard franchises than what Activision Blizzard is currently themselves, which includes games like Spyro and Hexen. Those are two often highly requested revivals, but another one is none other than Starcraft. Well, so about that, Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer was asked about game revivals at TGS, and Phil's answer was Mech Assault, which, I've seen a lot of requests for that game in its own as well. So big shout out to you Mech Assault fans out there. It might actually have a future if Bill Spencer has anything to say in the matter. But Sarah Bond's answer drew a lot of attention because this is what she said. Not me so much, but especially since I've been here this week, a lot of fans, and I've had a lot of people ask me in interviews about Starcraft. So I know a lot of you want that, which is the most important. So it would be fun to see if that's something we can do in the future. So yeah, as you're seeing here with this comment, they're already looking at those Activision Blizzard IP and what they can do with them. Again, Game Pass benefits from a large portfolio of games, and I mean, honestly, Starcraft would be huge for them, really across the world. Starcraft has a big audience over in Asia and more so on PC. I think that if they want to take PC Game Pass to the next level, a new Starcraft game would play right into that. And that's one of the things about Activision Blizzard. And more so on the Blizzard side of things, much like Bethesda, Blizzard has a big PC-centric audience. Games like Diablo, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, and in this case, StarCraft, these are major PC franchises. I think that Xbox, if you look at their acquisitions, are really positioning themselves to be a big player, not just with consoles, but also on PC. I know they also have aspirations to grow on mobile with this acquisition as well, and the acquisition of King, but I think this acquisition plays into Xbox's plans that it's not just a console for them. It's in an entire ecosystem, which includes consoles, PC, and soon to be mobile. Either way, though, for you StarCraft fans out there, it sounds like that it could actually make a comeback under the Xbox umbrella, though let's just kind of hope here that Spyro is also in their plans as well. If Activision isn't already working on a Spyro 4, which I hope they are, but if they're not, please Xbox, let's maybe consider that one as well. Moving on, though, we do have some PlayStation news as well, some good and some not so much, and let's just go start out with the potentially bad news here, and I say potentially because there's still some unknowns to this report as of this recording, but basically a ransomware group claims that they've breached all of Sony's systems. This is what they're saying. We have successfully compromised all of Sony's systems. We won't ransom them. We will sell the data. Due to Sony not wanting to pay, data is for sale. Now, at first glance here, this sounds terrible. This brings back, flashbacks of the big Sony hack in 2011. I was a part of that. I had a PS3 at the time, and it was terrible. There was a big concern for customer privacy and all that. But as of right now, there is some skepticism over this new claim. According to Cybersecurity Net, even though this group has provided their so-called proof, it right now, as of this recording, is being viewed as quote-unquote not particularly compelling. The group so far has posted things like a screenshot of an internal login page, an internal PowerPoint presentation, some Java files, and some things like that. From what it looks like, they may have actually breached Sony, though maybe not to the extent that they're alleging. They could ultimately just be blowing hot air in the hopes that Sony pays them, but that's what I want everybody to kind of understand right now. This story is still developing. We really don't know everything that's going on right now, and until Sony says something themselves, we're not going to have confirmation on that. But if this is something that you are concerned about, I'd go ahead and recommend turning on your two-step authenticator and do change your password. Do those two things if you are concerned even in the slightest. Hopefully, though, this story doesn't turn into something big, but I will let you all know as we learn more. Now, like I said, though, we did get some good PlayStation news as well because they just launched another PlayStation 5 promo. They're serious about hitting that lofty 25 million sold milestone this financial year, and that is something that they've noted already. Promos will be a part of reaching that goal. So if you're interested in PS5, well, they did give us a new offer, which is actually pretty good here because with every new PS5 purchase between now and October 20th, it will come included with one of 12 games of your choosing. However, do make sure to activate your PlayStation 5 and choose your game before the October 20th deadline. That way you can get your game. That is important here. But here's the 12 games that you can choose from, and these are actually some really great titles. It includes Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Demon's Souls, The Last of Us Part 1, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Returnal, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, and then last but not least, you have Death Stranding Director's Cut. Now, I actually think that all of these games are good in their own way. I don't think that you can really make a wrong decision here, but if you're asking me, and if I just had to recommend one, that's tough to say, but the way I look at this is, how can you save the most money on your purchase, and then what's the best from there? So I'd probably go with God of War Ragnarok just because, this is a game that launched last year. It is a $70 game. It's not necessarily my favorite game on this list, but it is a great game, and it saves you a lot of money right out of the gate. Truthfully, though, if you're just asking about my favorites and you're not worried about anything else, Uncharted, you all know that. I love the Uncharted series. It is one of my favorite games ever made, really the whole series. Then Demon's Souls, I love that game as well. Horizon Forbidden West, I really enjoyed Horizon Forbidden West. I think it's so much better than the first game. And then also Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Now, you might be able to get those games cheaper with some holiday sales just because they are a little older, which is why I'd recommend God of War, which you might be able to save a little bit more money that way. But again, all of these games are good in their own way. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day that we're asked you all. Do you think that Xbox should make their own PC gaming handheld or just rely on third parties? And yeah, so most of you all said no. 35% said yes and 56% said no. So, I mean, there's still a good portion that is very hopeful for a first-party Xbox handheld, but something that we have seen over the last year is that third parties are completely capable. Phil Spencer, he himself has said that he views devices like the ROG Ally as an Xbox handheld because it showcases their multi-device ecosystem. Even for me, I bought the ROG Ally specifically for PC Game Pass despite already owning a Steam Deck myself. So a first-party Xbox handheld isn't really as needed as it was just 1 year ago. Now, at the same time, if Xbox came out and they made their own device with a better interface, similar to the Steam Deck, which I think that's one of the big pros of a Steam Deck, well, that then might make this a little bit more enticing, make it more like a console than a Windows PC. But at the same time, you could also kind of argue they could just partner up with a third party and do it that way. I think that that's the direction that they're currently going in. They seem happy with these third-party devices, and they've done some Game Pass partners with them so far, and I think that they're going to continue to go in that direction. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.